Hello, today we visit an r/AskReddit post to ask. What's a secret your family doesn't think you know, but you do? Make sure to comment if you prefer me to put music in the background of these videos. With that, sit back and enjoy. That my cousin's Papillon didn't run away. I was with my uncle drinking on the porch and watched that poor pup get snatched off the ground by a massive hawk. A blink and it was gone. There was nothing we could do. We looked at each other after a solid few minutes of silence and he leans over, "That ducking dog ran away." I nodded and that was the last we discussed it. Cousin's rabbit was eaten by our stateside Italian grandma. We were all about 10, 11, and 13 years old. They think it ran away. My dad didn't go to another state for a job opportunity. He went on a Coke binge. No sweetie, he went to work for Coke. My dad didn't go to parenting classes, he went to outpatient rehab. And still got drunk every single night. This was after my parents divorced and I didn't find out till after my mom got custody. Kinda more of the family secret that only one person didn't know. Everyone else knew, but hey, dads be trippin'. The part they know I know now, because I vocally expressed my knowledge, is that my dad cheated on my mom while she was pregnant with my younger brother. There are a couple parts they don't know I know, and one they don't even know themselves. 1. My dad actively took me to see his mistress, my now stepmom, while he was still with my mom. I was really young, but I remember being around her while my parents were still married. It didn't click for me until I got older, and the rest of the family was really mad to find out when I told them. 2. The thing I know that my dad and the rest of my family doesn't know themselves is that my paternal grandpa continued to give my mom $1,000 per month on top of what my dad paid in child support, because he was pissed at my dad for cheating. My mom actually told me a story about my dad trying to bail on a dinner where the divorce was going to be discussed, and my grandpa straight up said, "You're taking your ducking bitch ass to that dinner." My dad started favoring the kids he had with my stepmom, and my grandpa wasn't having it. Until the day he died, he would secretly give my brother and I extra for Christmas, birthdays, etc., because he knew the other two kids were getting treated better. My mom told me many times that my grandpa was the only member of my dad's side she truly still loved after the divorce because of everything he did. 3. My grandparents paid for the house my dad and mom lived in, but my dad wanted to leave it when he got remarried. He didn't want the memories from it. Note that this house was 3 years old and really expensive. My dad threw a fit, because he wanted to build a new one-family farmland. This pissed the rest of my family off, because it was active farmland. This fit split the family in half, and it's still not fixed. My aunts and uncles still don't like my stepmom because of her role. I absolutely adore my mother. She's a single mother who got a master's in education, while taking care of 3 of us. She also worked all the way up to being a head of a department in the DOE. I've never seen her drink, shout, act immature, act out in any unbecoming way, etc. My whole life the one thing people commented on was how classy my mother is. Then 2 years ago when moving out, I ended up accidentally taking one of her boxes of papers from the attic thinking it was mine. It was full of court documents, talking about an affair my mother had with a married colleague. She allegedly got so upset he ended it that she started to stalk and harass him, and he filed criminal charges on her as well as brought it to HR at her former job. The things he says my mother did in those documents, I can't imagine in 100 years. Yet I also couldn't imagine her having an affair with this guy at all, but she admits it in the paperwork. I know why she left her state job and we moved to DC. Basically, there was some kind of deal made where she would leave and it would go away. And the criminal case was also pretty much dropped with the expectation and deal she would never contact him or bother him again. Like what the duck? It's made me really realize that you don't know anyone really. 1. The richest of them, Swiss banker, constantly borrows money from 2 of the retired middle-income family members to stay afloat. He doesn't know the rest of the family know, and is insufferably arrogant about his non-existent wealth. 2. The fitness instructor of the family is an anorexic who also drinks a bottle of wine every night, and is constantly preaching health, fitness to the rest of the family. 3. Sister of fitness woman is an aerospace engineer, who graduated with honors. Her personality is so overbearing and toxic that she can't keep a job, so she's a som who looks down on working moms in the family. 4. The judgmental ultra-religious aunt had to go to another state to have a baby in secret. Thanks ancestry test. That my uncle, deceased, was a registered adult fun-time offender. I was never introduced to him, and my dad, his brother, would never speak about him. I was told he passed away, and the excuse of, "You never met him," was the reason I couldn't go to his funeral, yet my parents have dragged me to people's funeral that I never knew funeral. They weren't even related to me. Got suspicious and searched my uncle's name up on one of those adult fun-time offender lists, and his name came up plus his face. Turns out he was caught touching a 3-year-old child at a park a few weeks before I was born. Scary. My parents were probably just protecting me. My brother got arrested and went to court for multiple drug charges. They went out of their way to hide it from me so that they could continue to act like I was the disappointment. They pretended they were going out to breakfast without me and rubbed it in my face to cover up his court dates. I have a master's in mechanical engineering, master's in applied physics, bachelor's double majored in theater and costume, clothing design, and creation. I have worked for major companies and a few government agencies, worked for places like NASA through companies that had contracts with them. In my youth, I did stand up fairly successfully locally. Yet my druggy punk, back in the day younger brother who has been in prison multiple times. He has always been my mom's fav. Like, obviously. My awesome stepdad. Best man I have ever known, and the best thing to ever happen to my mom and our family. Almost left her more than once over her outright favoritism and all she does for my bro. Bro finally screwed up so bad mom stopped. And bro moved halfway across the country. Dad has realized how much money mom has been giving bro. Around $2,000 per month and up. Without telling him. Now, dad is retired, and mom makes a hell of a lot of money. But she hid it from him. As for what bro did to be cut off and out. Nothing illegal. He married a woman that was pretty horrible-ish. I have never had a problem with her. But my mom loathes her. And she can be into a lot of drama. Took me to be almost 50 to be the favorite kid. My parents could not afford an abortion when my mother got pregnant with me, so they tried half a dozen folk remedies to end the pregnancy. I was first told by someone who was trying to hurt me, and at the time, it did. It was later confirmed by another person who misunderstood something I said and thought I was referring to this. The two people do not know each other. I don't hold any ill will toward my parents since I also know the unbelievable financial pressure they were under at the time. They couldn't afford a third child, and I was a surprise due to a birth control failure. It would utterly destroy them if they knew I've known about this most of my life. I wish I could tell them that I completely understand and I feel great empathy for the horrible position they were in. But I know it would restart years of emotional pain even if they knew how I feel. My nan and my grandpa are cousins. I'm from Yorkshire, England. My grandparents are first cousins. They were very much in love. They did not grow up close. They were discouraged when they fell in love in the 1940s. They tried not to be in love, but it couldn't be denied. Absolutely devoted to each other. My nana turns 90 soon, and is still devoted to my granddad, who has been dead around 20 years. I've always known, but recently my brother, 42, mentioned it in passing to one of our cousins, 23, and she was shook. It's not a secret in our family. Everyone knows. My grandparents had a photo in their lounge of their mothers as children with their parents. But it's not like it's something we're proud of. We generally don't bring it up because we all know it's something people frown upon. It was awkward when it came time to do our family trees at primary school. My grandfather lied about where he was stationed in World War II. He confided some in me in his last years, but a few slip-ups on his part and some papers I found made me start questioning. He says he was stationed in Las Vegas at a supply warehouse the entire war, but has papers from the OSS, knows how to hot-wire a single-engine plane, and when I made some remark about a field manual saying to fire your gun into an enemy if your bayonet is stuck in them, he mumbled, "Yeah, done that a few times." My mom and aunts all like to dodge the question. They may not even know it all themselves. But my older cousin and I both agree he probably stacked bodies across Europe. I'm 99% certain that my brother, born 3 years before divorce of my mom and dad, is actually my half-brother, and his dad is my stepdad. My mom was cheating on my dad with the dude who was to be my new dad. To cover this shit up, my mom made up a bunch of terrible lies about my dad. He killed my imaginary, it turns out twin brother in utero, tried to kill me, he kidnapped us. My dad always hated my brother. etc., that made me cut contact and plan his death for 35 long, angry, and wasted years. Until I discovered all the lies. Unpacking this shit with my step bro. We're tight and we came to the same conclusion about my brother's real father. The tragic part was, all these lies really ducked with me and my brother's heads. My bro committed suicide at 18 with no note. For years I tried to figure out why he would top himself, and now I'm all but certain it was due to the Jedi-level mind duck from my mum's attempt to hide her infidelity. My anger was channeled into rage, his went to sadness. Miss you bro. You should be here. You'd have loved my kids, my little girl is just like you. My aunt divorced my uncle in the 50s, with 6 children. She had no job nor any means to support her and her kids and had to split the family up, sending half the kids to her sister's house while she and the other 3 stayed in another sister's home. She and her 6 children were treated like dirt. No one could understand why she left her husband. She died in the 1980s, taking the truth to her grave. I became close to one of her daughters who also died, recently. But on her deathbed, drugged up from all the medication, she told me the truth. She told me her father, the uncle whom my aunt divorced, touched her all over when she was 12. This hit close to home and convenient timing, but that my family or more of my mom hid my potentially autism diagnosis from me for over 20 years. I always had trouble in school, always falling behind, writing, balance, speech, etc. The schools would constantly try to get me in special education, which my mom refused. I remember being in an program as a kindergarten. I researched it and it was an autism early intervention program. I asked my mom and she got defensive, denied it despite me showing her all the evidence and said it doesn't matter and she doesn't remember. I'll never know the full truth. I accepted it while working on it. My mother is the reason my dad wasn't in my life for over 18 years. My sibling and I were supposedly abducted by my mother and left our country in Europe for the US. My mother is a US citizen but my father was not, being from Europe. He took her to court here in the US but for some reason nothing amounted to it. I grew up listening and believing her stories of how he was a bad person and how he treated her. Although she was pretty bad herself with the physical, mental, and emotional abuse I endured all my life with her. But because of the stories she told my sibling and I grew up hating him. I came to a boiling point from the abuse she gave and decided one day to move out once I turned 22 and moved in with my wife, girlfriend at the time. My girlfriend knew how much it hurt me not being able to be or speak with my dad, so she secretly contacted him and put us in touch. 5 years later and my dad and I are reconnected, almost speaking daily. I get to go back home yearly to reconnect with family. We both are grateful to my wife. At first it was difficult speaking to my dad as I had so much anger, hate, and questions for him. But I later learned my mom got married secretly before him and us, and that's how she got her US citizenship. She ended up cheating on my dad, and that's how my dad found out about the previous marriage, by contacting him to ask why they divorced. Once my dad told the man he wanted to ask about my mom, the guy told him to never contact him again because she ruined his life. All of my family from my dad's side told me stories about how my mom made life difficult for my dad. I learned a lot about her and honestly put the pieces together with how she was as a human being. 5 years and I still have zero contact with her. With that, thank you for watching all the way until the end, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment whether you prefer me to put music in the background of these videos. If you want to continue to watch my content, click one of the videos above. Until next time.